Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. And as usual, I like to start things off with a little joke. And it's funny this week because, we've been real busy. And so I thought, sometimes it's hard to get things. And then this week I got a good joke. And then I saw another one that was a good joke. And anyway, it went around and around. So anyway, I got a lot for a few weeks, which is good. But anyway, the temporary Sunday school teacher went to her class and was going to teach class, but she couldn't get into the supply cabinet to get the supplies for the class. So she was trying to lock, couldn't figure it out, didn't know she was given the numbers. So she finally got fed up and went to the pastor's study and asked for help. And so the pastor came out and began to turn the dial, turned it to the first number, turned it to the second number, and then he paused for a second and couldn't remember the third number it looked like. And so then he calmed himself, looked up and prayed, and then turned back and he put in the third number and unlocked the lock cabinet. And the Sunday school teacher was so amazed. She said, "Oh, I'm so glad and so proud to be in a church that our pastor has such faith that you can just pray about something and remember the number for the last number on the combination." And he said, "Well, I appreciate that comment, but the number is written on a piece of tape right here in the cabinet." All right. Well, this one I hope that you're interested in because this is the title of today's lesson is prayer, and every Unity minister would have a lot of different lessons on this. As far as it could be a series and things that we could talk about, but I'm going to try to explain it in a synopsis here for what the meaning of prayer is and what do we expect from it. Well, what we can expect from it, I could have put, but I did put what we do expect from it. And I just saw this morning, so I have to laugh. Francie didn't know what I was going to say here, of course. And so she put the next picture in of me, which wasn't what I was going for. But anyway, what is the meaning of prayer and what do we expect from it? You can think of that for yourself right now and think about what you do expect from prayer and what is the meaning for you. And then we can go over some things, and I'm going to try to tell you a little bit about how Unity looks at prayer and what we think about it. So, but when I was a child, which she put me up here, and I didn't expect that, like I said, well, you can't see it, I forgot. Here I am, chubby little boy, with my sister, almost 10 years younger. This is my uncle that is a missionary. This is my grandmother, and then that's my brother. Wow. Yeah. So anyway, I think that's my brother. That might be his brother. And he might be the missionary. I don't remember. One of them's a missionary. I'm pretty sure that's Daniel. He's the missionary. Anyway, he's been in Indonesia for a long time. It's interesting to find out what those countries require of you to do just church. Anyway, they don't give you visas for a long time. But anyway, when I was a child, I heard somebody say this week that when I was a child, I used to think of prayer as something that I asked for from God. But then I was doing that, and my parents heard me and came to me and said, "That's not how you do prayer. You don't ask for something in prayer." And so later, instead of praying for something, what the child did was he stole something, and then he asked for forgiveness for it in prayer. Well, that's the right use of prayer, isn't it? But that's not really what we should do, is it? So we can think of something as we grow in our spirituality. We do have the ability, and obviously we grow physically in our human sense, but we also have the ability to grow in our spiritual understanding, which can be vast, very vast, if we choose to. This is what Charles Fillmore says about prayer. He says, prayer is more than supplication, more than just asking for it or begging for it. It is an affirmation of truth that externally, outside of us, exists, but which has not come into consciousness yet. So, okay, so there's two ways, and Fillmore did this, and I probably said it before. He used consciousness, and he should have used the capital C when he meant consciousness, and he should have used the word awareness probably when he meant awareness. In this instance, or lowercase c. In this instance, he's talking about awareness on that part. Now, on the second part, on the second consciousness, he's talking about consciousness. Okay? It comes into consciousness not by supplication, but by affirmation. This was an easy one for him to write after he got started at Unity, obviously, because of what his wife went through. His wife actually Myrtle started him through to a consciousness of prayer. And when I'm saying consciousness this way, I'm referring to a capital C, which doesn't mean awareness. It means your wholeness, okay? I guess that's a good way to put consciousness. I just thought of that. That's a good way to put consciousness, what I'm talking about. Because consciousness, when we talk about it with a capital C, we're talking about our spiritual side, okay? And we need to be aware of what we're talking about when we're talking. So I was very fortunate in that sense that a Unity minister in Dallas, Texas, which I had to go see a few times, he wasn't my mentor. It was before I even went to seminary or anything, but he was very good about teaching me. He said, Warren, when you talk to somebody, do your best to get the right words. Do your best to explain the words that you need to explain if you have to, but use the words you can to do it. So I try to do that. Sometimes I don't make it. Most of the time I can get it. But this is what Fillmore's talking about on prayer. But we know prayer as different things. We know prayer, first of all, both as supplication and as a consciousness-raising effort and an awareness effort, don't we? Now, I'm not saying anything negative, because even, as much as I've prayed in my life, there are times when I'm supplicating too, still, okay? There's points in our life where we are, whatever it is, we're beaten down physically enough to where we are saying, please, God, help me, And that can be all sorts of different ways, but we're asking for that. And we do have to surrender to have prayer work. But anyway, here we go. As we grow in our spiritual awareness, our memory, we can become not only a better prayer, but a more aware of what we're doing. And why I said our memory in this is because when we're growing our spiritual awareness, it's like anything in our spirituality. We're not learning something new that just became in us. We're learning about something that has been in us forever. We're not. Do you understand the difference? We're not. We may be becoming aware of something for the first time, but when we look at it and we recognize it and we accept it, we understand that that's always been there. That's one of the wonderful things about Unity is that, and that's why it attracts so many different types of people wherever they come from, whatever they've heard as far as other religions or spiritual growth things, is that it touches something in them that is already there that they haven't recognized. And that's okay. And that's good, actually, because that's what we're talking about when we're talking about prayer. We're talking about trying to get to a point where we can pray and understand that what we're praying for, maybe, or what we're praying about, is already there. I like to use the car instance, and there are people that have been in this church and everywhere that will tell you their story about what's happened. But when you pray for a car, maybe you're praying for a Cadillac or something, whatever specific thing that you want, when what you really need and what's in consciousness, what's inside of you is what? Some type of transportation to get around, right? And it really doesn't make a difference. But are we going to prevent, it's like the old story, when I'm praying for a Cadillac, and I know that God's going to bring it to me. It's going to be white, it's going to be very beautiful inside, it's going to be brand new. And then someone comes up and says, I got this 2-year-old Grand Prix that I don't need anymore. I'll give it to you free. I can't take that. God's going to bring me. Right? We have to be aware of what the good is that God is bringing you. You might still get that Cadillac, but you darn well better accept that Grand Prix when you need it. So we have to be aware of what's going on around us. Not only specifically what we're praying for, but what is best. In health, here I've told many times about how we pray for not only health, but we pray for not only, okay, when I say health the second time, right there, I'm not saying that the physical body necessarily has to heal. What I'm saying is the health of the person. I have known, and I'm sure you have known, people that their body is in such bad physical shape that the healthiest thing for them is to make the transition. It's sad to say that. For me, it is. I don't like saying that. It makes me a little bit emotional. But that emotion comes from my missing that person. Not necessarily that person's best interest. You follow me? Yeah. So don't try to hold back, make somebody stay with you because you're personally invested in that person when the best thing for that person is to be released in love. It's hard to do. I know it is. At least for me it is. Okay. Pesach, or Passover, begins this week. And I think, well, everybody knows Passover. They may have not heard the word Pesach before, but that's the Jewish or the Hebrew word for essentially for Passover. And a lot of us, at least sometimes, we're Christian denomination, and we kind of forget sometimes what Passover is. And Passover is a celebration for the Hebrew people getting out of bondage in Egypt. Okay, that's essentially the story of it. It's a celebration that they have, and it starts depending on which sect you're talking about in Judaism. It starts either today or tomorrow, and some of them are 8 days, and some of them are 7 days. So the Passover, which is more commonly word used, is something that we can all celebrate in now. I mean, the great thing about I think one of the great things about Christianity is that is the same story about what Jesus taught. Is that they include, because Jesus was always a Jew, they include Judaism, part of it at least, as far as their history. And so on all of these things, these growth areas as far as spiritual understanding, we can celebrate with other people. And that's how we're going to become one anyway, okay? We're not going to, if we keep closing ourselves on, well, I'm Christian and I'm the right way, the only way, and there's nobody else right. That's closing it off, and that's not at one with everybody, is it? So, in our prayers and our understanding, we have to not only include what we're praying for, but we're praying for everybody involved. Okay, so Passover is about the celebration of coming out of bondage, which there's a lot of Passover stories, isn't there? I mean, here we had slavery in the United States. Juneteenth, that celebration really came late. I mean, it's pretty recent. That's not very old celebration, and that took a long time to start having that celebration. So anyway, there's a lot of things that we can celebrate, and some of them may be closer to home than others, but we can celebrate all these things if we choose to do so. Now this is something, I don't know how much y'all have heard about this because I don't bring this up that much, but it used to be, a hot topic, is because in Unity, when we start studying everything, we usually call ourselves metaphysicians or practicing metaphysicians. And there's this other more common word used is mystic. And when you think of, you have your own ideas about both those words. I know you've probably heard mystic before, but maybe you haven't heard metaphysician. If you've been in Unity a while, I would think you have, but I don't know. But anyway, in my opinion, which is not agreed to by others, is that they're the same thing. So some people put a mystic, a mystic is more all the time in the spiritual understanding, and a metaphysician is learning about it. But we are, I like to say we're metaphysicians because of the fact, what does it look, what does metaphysician mean? It means beyond the physical, right? So when we're looking at that, I don't, if if somebody considers a mystic always in it, I would say in the spiritual understanding is none of us in this body, in my opinion, in the third dimension, are at a point where we can say that we've learned it all spiritually. Okay? And so when we are praying, that's one of the things we're praying for, isn't it? When we're praying, we're not only praying for the health of somebody, for something else in our life, for something out of our life, whatever we're praying for, what are we doing? We're praying for what? A higher power to come and hopefully not intervene all the way by itself, but to help us to understand how we need to be in the situation. Because every situation we pray for, every situation that we're in, we are playing a part. And when we pray, hopefully we're praying for understanding of what our part, the best part for everybody involved in it is for us. And that can be a lot of different things. Unity in Christianity, this kind of delves more into the idea of a little bit what I was talking about earlier as far as metaphysician and mystic, and that is that unity, some of unity ministers would say that we're not Christian, but unity has always been a denomination in itself anyway, which doesn't mean it's not Christian. It means it's like you got Presbyterian, Methodist, Catholic, they're all Christian, okay? So they're different religions. But unity, I can see both comments on this. I've said that before, that unity is something that we're growing, we're still growing. So we agree that more about the fact that even though Jesus was not totally credited with saying it, we agree more with the fact of what is said that Jesus said in the Bible that these things and greater you shall do. If you don't believe that, then you can stay stagnant. But if you believe that, then you have to be able to move on, right? You have to be able to continue to grow, which is what we try to do in unity. And I was going to hand out something today, but in the rushedness, I did not get to it. Maybe we'll have it after service. I don't know if we have them here, though, is the problem. I'll find out. Because unity does have a 5, well, she put it up there, thank God. I do appreciate her. Unity does have the 5-step prayer process. And the 5-step prayer process is written up here. And you can get confused, so you have to go through it a little bit, sometimes a few times. Some people can. Anyway, the thing is, it's like when we're meditating too. We do that, and we calm ourselves down and relax, and then we go into a meditative state and everything. First part is to relax. The second part is to concentrate. And everybody knows how to relax. That's why I'm not doing that. But this does get a little bit more into it. And it says, set aside time each day for prayer. It is important to us to pray. And so sometimes we get in our busy lives and we say, well, I can't do this, can't do that. It's similar to exercising your body, right? We all know we need to exercise to stay in shape. But how many of us have a routine where we exercise? Not as many as maybe we could. So we have to set aside a time for each day for prayer. And then on concentrate, as you close your eyes, it says this, as you close your eyes and release any thought of the world around you, begin to think about God. Now, like I said, we've got cards of these, and if we don't have them today, we'll get them, and you can have one, okay, free. So, concentrate is not necessarily asking for something, okay? This is where it gets can get confusing for people. We're not asking for something in the prayer yet. What we're doing is concentrating on being calm and relaxed, like the step before, and understanding that God is in this space, okay? So it calms you down, slows you down, to where you can, because what's the most important thing about prayer, and I'm going to give you this course, but the most important thing about prayer is not asking for the right thing. It's about listening for the right thing, okay? So it's not about asking. Meditate, which people get confused too a little bit, is allow this focused state of mind, thinking about God and relax, to move you into a deeper awareness of God. So when we get to meditate, we're still not asking or doing anything like that. We're still not actually thinking, bringing that thought into prayer. Because usually when we go into prayer, what do? We already are thinking about what we want, what we're praying about, right? That's why we go into prayer, right? But if we had a set time every day, when we get to the point where we've asked for everything that we can think about, then what would we do? What would we do? We would have a time when we're starting and we're able to fully relax, wouldn't we? It takes practice is all. That's why you need to set the time every day and do it. Is because it takes time to just get to a point where, wow. And then the amazing thing about that when you get to that point is you're already halfway there and that's just by setting a time each day. Because you're to the point where whatever's going on in my life isn't bothering me as much as it used to. Because I've got nothing to ask for. Isn't that cool? That would be cool. If you never experienced it, it's really cool. So anyway, we're down to meditation. Allow this focused state of mind to move you deeper into an awareness of God. And then realize from the depth of your being, know that you are one with God. And that is the realization is the crescendo, if you will, of what's going on in your prayer time. Because when you are realizing, that's when these thoughts will flood into you. That's when the super consciousness and your awareness come into one, and you're bypassing the subconscious, because you're not worried about all that gunk, the monkey mind that you got anymore. You're actually, divine mind is coming in, which is super consciousness, is coming into your aware thoughts. And it's really, really cool. It doesn't happen to me very often. I mean, it could happen more, but it because I need to be practicing more too. But it is just so amazing when thoughts like that come into your mind, you'll just be blown away. It's cool. And the last step is giving thanks. Of course, we all know what giving thanks is, but giving thanks really is having gratitude for your time that you're allowing yourself to go into prayer and meditation and to understand that you are one with God. And it really can change your life if you're doing that on a daily basis.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Well, what's the difference in, that sounds more like meditating, like going into meditation. And I thought praying was opening yourself up for, prayer for, like, say, the people and the conditions, and seeing that for them, connected prayers for, like, say, someone's health, that we can bring that to them.
Okay, it is. And that's a good question, because a lot of people get confused with that. In fact, the first time you read that, you might think that this is more of a drawn-out process. It's a meditation. But you know what? How much time do we spend in meditation every week? Extremely little. I mean, if you think about it. Everybody's quiet for a little bit, right? We're really trained to probably go 2 minutes. We don't go near that here yet.
Well, we're not doing that either if we're not doing the meditation. But if you have to make yourself do it. Exactly.
And so what happens is that we, on this prayer process, if you read it, you think, well, this is going to take a long time. But if you're doing it, then it really doesn't take very much time at all. And you're getting away from what you're talking about there. If you'll reread this again, you're getting away from the specifics of a situation. You're recognizing the truth of all situations instead of just focusing on, I need health for my brother. Okay? Instead of that, you see health everywhere. And you're going to be able to get to it a lot faster than you think. Yeah, Theo?
Could you reread it, please?
Sure, I'm going to give you the cards if I can find them.
Okay.
Relax. Set aside time each day for prayer. I'm just reading the very first. I'm not reading the whole thing, okay? Concentrate. As you close your eyes and release any thought of the world around you, begin to think about God. And then it says, ... about God's presence in your life.
And then 3, meditate. Allow this focused state of mind to move you into a deeper awareness of God. This is where, during our meditation, we're going into the silence. Okay? When we're getting, and when I say the silence, what I mean is at one with God. Okay? That's why I specifically say usually we're going to be quiet and enter into the silence. Okay? That doesn't mean we're going to be quiet and be silent. Okay? The fourth one, realize from the depth of your being, know that you are one with God. That's where you're realizing things, okay, like I said. And then give thanks. Let gratitude be your heart's joyous response to this experience in communion with God and with God's infinite goodness. Yes, ma'am.
So when does the prayers for the
people or whatever?
Yes.
Okay.
When does that
Okay. Huh?
yes fit in? That's what.
Where does it fit in? Oh, okay. When you are doing all this, first of all, relaxing, a lot of it will come in there, believe it or not. Because you're not going to relax until you release those. And see, when we think of somebody, I don't want to be mean to anybody, because we've all done it. When we think of somebody having in the hospital needs healed, all right, what are we doing? We're thinking of somebody in the hospital needing to be healed. When we relax and release that, what are we doing? We're not seeing that person being in the hospital and needing healing. When we get through this, we're recognizing that person has health within them, just like Bertel did, health within them that they can draw, and we see it being drawn, not only within them, but within us that are supposedly healthy. Right? How does someone get sick inside, internally? I mean, we can break our leg or something, but we can go get that mended fairly easily, can't we? But how does someone get sick? We get sick because we have something, a disease, or whatever, get into us, right? I know that this will be hard for some people to believe, but it's true. At least I've experienced it, and I think it is true. When we get to the point where we are at oneness, and we have a good prayer practice, it'd take a good prayer practice, let me tell you that, it'd take a good prayer practice. We can go and not worry about being sick. We can go around people who are sick and not worry about being sick. So it's funny that this thing comes up, because I didn't even put these two together. Hopefully I can talk. Francie and I started talking about something that happened many years ago. This past week. And it's with someone that Francie knew quite well. I did not know them that well, but I came to know the family. And it was a middle-aged man. He wasn't in his 40s yet. I mean, we were all a lot younger then. But anyway, he came up with AIDS when AIDS was not as well known as it is, now and all this, and they didn't have the medicines to take care of it. And it was very eye-opening, if nothing else, to see someone die that way. It was a very horrible death. To what otherwise was a very healthy man. Now, at that time, it may have been my stupidity, but I wasn't worried about going around him. It didn't faze me at all. And Francie went around him more than I did, but he had he was just a great soul. And, at that time, it was highly contagious. It was not the wisest thing for us to do. So, what I'm saying is, that may have been just from stupidity, like I said. But going around that sometimes, when you don't really, are not really concerned about it, then you know that you're protected somehow. And you can say it's God's light around you or whatever you want to say, but it has to do with you being in touch with the oneness. And health is we here really should know this. We've had some miracles happen on health, haven't we, in this congregation? Many miracles on the health of this congregation. And it doesn't, whatever the doctor says or whatever the diagnosis says, doesn't necessarily have to do with you internally. It has to do maybe with your body at the time. The doctor does his or her best, and that's fine, but it doesn't mean it has to be a negative consequence or ending for you. That's up to you and what you decide. Now, like I say, sometimes people are better to move on, make their transition, aren't they?
Yeah.
We've all experienced that. All right. So this is, like I say, this topic of prayer is something that could go on a long time. Yeah, Dee Dee, one more question.
Well, as a wellness and prayer chaplain,
Uh-huh.
we were taught the difference between prayer and meditation.
Right.
Where prayer is when you're claiming something, whether for yourself or whether, for someone else. And meditation is something where you're listening.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, and that's why, like what she was saying, that sounds more like meditation.
Right. Well, this actual prayer process here came out not at the very beginning of Unity, but it came out after studies or years of praying and meditating. But this is something that does incorporate a little bit of both of them. Okay, I'm not going to say it doesn't, but it does do a very good job of helping people that are really have no idea of how to pray, and somebody that has a lot of what we used to call monkey mind going on. A lot of people, when they get down and they sit and pray, and they have a time, especially sometimes, but it'll go away. But sometimes it just doesn't go away, right? You're sitting there wanting to pray, and I got to do this, I got to do that, and Aunt Margaret's got this going on, and you just cannot relax.
Yeah.
And so it takes practice is all. And as we practice, we become better in anything, right? And that's one of the things that we need to do. We need to go back and remember, not physically go back somewhere, but in our memory, go back and remember what we came from. Like I said, I told you, I believe in kenosis, which I think that we came from Spirit. We'll return to Spirit when we decide to, but if you came from Spirit, in fact, I heard somebody the other day, what was that? Oh, darn, I wish I would remember that quote. It's in a poem about, I wish I remember. I'm going to have to write it down. I'm sorry. I'll remember to bring it to you. Because it was really cool, and I didn't know anybody wrote something like that. It's really cool about, because kenosis is really something that is really brushed over, or brushed away, more or less from the Bible. Jesus said it, but he was on drugs that day or something. I don't know what they think. Anyway.
God forgive you.
God forgive. Mea culpa. Okay. Realization, here we go with that word. Realization, coming into truth, is the ultimate, which it is. Gratitude is the last step, but which arguably could be one of the first steps too, if you think about it. If we enter prayer grateful for where we are right now, then sometimes that will help us relax. We have to sometimes count our blessings. I don't know how many people know that song. Count your blessings, count them one by one. You remember that? You all good. You all heard it. Good. That is a cool song, and I wish we had somebody to lead us in it. But anyway, what we do when we count our blessings is it kind of dissipates the stuff of the other junk that we're thinking about and worrying about, right? At least it should. It can. It will. I am a big believer in one good thought can expel 10 or more bad thoughts. Very big on that. Because I think you can do that very easily. Just think about something good. Improving ourselves, improving our lot in life, if you will, is a fine thing to have in you. Yet, when you don't stop and smell the roses, which I'm very guilty of, then you got to stop and smell the roses, or you're just going to kill yourself, essentially. Really. Physically. Everything. Every which way. Because it's no problem to want more and to be more and to become more. But if you're not enjoying the ride, what is the point? And I'm guilty of that. I'm telling you, I am. I know it, but I'm getting better about it over the years. I've gotten a lot better. So anyway, let's continue. Realization, though, is coming into the truth with a capital T is the ultimate. And that truth with a capital T, all it means is we're realizing that God and I are one, and that we are going to
get through this, get through whatever, not necessarily a negative thing, but continue to grow, I should say. Because, it's like I'm trying my best to, when I get, just like I did a minute ago, get emotional about something, to be able to talk through it. I haven't got there yet, but I'm getting better, okay? I've seen people that are good orators be able to get emotional and talk through something, and I'm going to get there. But, sometimes it does, and it's usually when I'm, not thinking I'm going to bring something up. But anyway, things happen for a purpose. Numerous ways to the mountaintop. And I put on this, and I hope that we believe this. This is kind of going back to the religion end of it. We can't continue, and I know that there are, listen, there are bad people in every religion, okay? Let's just be honest. There are bad people in every religion that don't necessarily or abide by what we're talking about. But we can't continue to put one group of people down because of whatever their belief is. Right now in the world, I totally, personally, this is just me personally, not church, Unity Church or anything, I totally disagree with those people that are protesting about Israel right now. And the reason I disagree with it is because, to be quite honest, they're stupid. They don't even know what they're talking. When you ask them a question, they don't even know what they're talking about. And so, anyway, but here's why I don't like it mostly, is because they are downing the Israeli people. Well, they don't know all the Israeli people. You can't down a whole group of people. And vice versa, Israel can't do it to them either. Okay? So I'm not taking up for one or the other, but I'm saying let's figure out what we're doing, okay, as far as our individual self and how we're thinking about it. And I shouldn't say that I said it right. I don't like it, but I can get over it, I mean, I just want, I want education to be something that's key and people learn. Because I know that people that I've experienced in my life where there's a lot of things that I thought as a child that were totally wrong. Totally wrong. I used to be one of those that would think, in fact, that happened not too long ago. Those parents got convicted of what their son did. And I used to think, God, if I was younger, I would say, yeah, those parents should be convicted of what their kids did. Now I think, oh my God, that's something that we shouldn't step into. I mean, I can't control my 6 and 7 year old, much less when they get older. I can't control what they do. But anyway, I love them. That doesn't mean I'm going to not love them anymore if they do something wrong. And, anyway. I wrote down Everest and K2 because I don't know if you remember, but here in the history books, and maybe you're not old enough, I don't know. Here in the history books, Mount Everest used to be the tallest mountain in the world, remember? It wasn't even close. It wasn't even close after we discovered more of the world from our history books. And now, if I remember right, K2 is the tallest now. Is that correct? There's a few over at Everest, but I don't remember. I think K2 is the tallest. Anyway, so see, even in that, in our history books, we're thinking about only what's around us sometimes. Today I celebrate Texas's independence from Santa Ana. It's today, believe it or not. And most people won't because they're not from Texas. But, for people in Texas, that's a pretty big deal, right? We defeated Santa Ana in about 18 minutes when he kept chasing us around Texas. And so we separated his army and ended up defeating him. So, and when he was trying to get out, dressed as a private, when he was trying to escape, we caught him and we made him sign a proclamation saying that he would not attack Texas anymore and that he would try in the Mexican legislation to let Texas have their independence. So back then, when you did something like that, then you'd go back and do it because your word was good. But anyway, that is something that's really localized, isn't it? It's not something that maybe people in Georgia would even think about, much less celebrate, right? But we can choose to celebrate our independence however we choose to. I mean, I think sometimes about Georgia, when we're talking about Georgia, what Georgia was named after. King George.
You know, back in the old times, before we had our Revolutionary War and stuff. So yeah, you know, you can think about a lot of things and you can get yourself confused and all this, but stay focused on what you are doing with the rest of the world. And that's what prayer is about. Beginning it with love to experience more love is the idea of prayer. If you begin with love in your heart without thinking, because I don't know how we can look at someone, and we're using the physical health idea, as someone with an ailment, a dis-ease, and think of it with love. We may think that we're thinking of it with love, but which would be better in your mind? Think of somebody that's sick, or see someone that is going through something and see the health inside of them. Which is going to help them and you more, seeing the health inside of them. And so that's what we need to strive for. And that's what this prayer process will get you to do if you haven't before. Living a more spiritual life is the meaning of prayer. So these are the answers to what we started with. What is the meaning of prayer? The meaning of prayer is to live a more spiritual life. There are people, I mean, you saw, I don't know how this is only the second time, and I'm personally glad that I didn't see the video. If they have a video on it this week, you know, you saw somebody burn themselves alive again. And, you know, I actually saw a video during the Vietnam War where a monk did that. And to think of the thought process that they're in at that time to pour fuel on themselves and light themselves on fire is something, if you think about it. I mean, I know that they are both trying to prove a point, yet you have to be pretty, I don't know what you'd say, pretty focused, that's what I'll say, to be able to do that. So we have to understand that all these situations we may find disturbing, we may find unnerving, that we can, through the prayer process, believe it or not, assist in dissipating that. We can assist in stopping those negative things from happening by living a more spiritual life. That's the meaning of prayer, by living a more spiritual life. Being, you notice how I spelled that, being is what we can expect from earnest prayer. Why I wrote that was because if we if we go through that prayer process and continue to it, and then we end up, we're at gratitude essentially first and last, where we are entering this awareness where we don't have anything that's bothering us anymore, that we're just going to be doing these prayer processes and listening, then we're going to be to a point where we are being. Because if you just be, if you honestly just be, then you're the spirit self you are supposed to be. You won't be thinking about, oh, my poor brother, or whatever it is, okay? You won't be thinking about any negative thoughts because you'll be in that Christ consciousness, as we say in unity. So if we can do that, then that's the answers to our first questions, which is living a more spiritual life is the meaning of prayer, and being is what we can expect when we are in a prayer consciousness. So right now, I want to share with you, God is blessing you now, but right now I want to share this, and this is, like I say, an amazing week for me, because sometimes you're looking for stuff and you can't find it, and then if you release, though, you find it. So that's what happened to me this week.